Alright guys, so a friend sent over a model made in Sculptris, and so we're just gonna reduce the polys real quick, add a rig to it that's Mecanim compatible for Unity, and throw an animation on it real quick and bring the thing to life. So open up the Sculptris file and just do a new scene, go straight into the paint mode because the painting's already been done. And so the first thing to do is export the model to an OBJ file. I'm just going to name it mouse 01. And then we also need to export the UV map and texture layout, well, the texture. So click on Advanced Tools and save the texture map. And I'm just going to call it mouse texture. Okay, and so now we're done in Sculptris. The next thing I'm going to do is use Ultimate Unwrap 3D to reduce the polygons, and this is just uu3d.com. Ultimate Unwrap 3D, uu3d, or Unwrap 3D, many names it goes by. Handy little tool, and you can see here that the model is 146,000 polygons, so I'm gonna go right to 3D tools and poly reduce model. I believe I'm going to reduce by, well, let me check what 95% looks like. That's 3,600 vertices afterwards. So that is done, and now there's 3,000 polys and 7,000 or 3,600 verts, 7,200 polygons. So the other thing I'm going to do real quick is just go to 3D tools, modifiers, scene, move to the center, and then above Y. So now the character is at the center and above Y. And the UV map is preserved, so all we have to do at this point is save it. And just to save this Unwrap 3D project, I'm going to save it as a U3D file, but we really just need to save it as an FBX. So now that we have the FBX file, I'm going to use Blender to rig it, since it's free and anybody can do this. The first thing I'm going to do is just delete the items in the scene that we don't need and import that FBX file we created, which is in Sculptris tutorial. And it looks like it's quite small, so let me press N to get the options here in Blender and select the mesh, and I can see the scale is small, so let me just turn that up to 1. There we go. Okay, so the first thing that needs to be done is just bone needs to get created. I'm going to press Shift C to get the cursor to the center, which it already is, but that's okay, and go back into edit object mode. Okay, so create an armature, and that's going to create a bone right here, and we want to keep the root right down here at 0, 0, 0, but we're going to move the bone up from there. Now the question is, how do you what bones are we supposed to make, and what do we call them? And so this is from Unity Mecanim, and I'll put a link in this video to this image. But essentially, the green ones are required bones, and the gray circles are not required. And the root is needs to be this hips, and then spine, chest, and up. So I'm going to reference this image on my screen on the side and follow that along. And I recommend you do the same, print it out or put it on a screen on the side, or use Alt-Tab. So the next thing to do here is I just want to turn on X-ray so that I can see the bones underneath of the mesh, inside of the mesh. And it's also a really good idea to use the orthographic view, the front and the side views, and I can see here that the front of the mouse is actually not the front, so I am going to go into the mesh itself and press N to bring up the properties and go ahead and rotate this on the Z axis 180 degrees. And now we can keep going. I'm going to select the armature bone, and so I'm using the 1 and the 3 in the numpad to move the bone here. And the one I'm creating right now, if you look on the image, is the hip bone. So it should be it's going to look about like this. I'm going to go ahead and create all 3 bones, even though the chest bone is not required. So what I'm going to do here is just press E to extrude and Z for the Z axis. And I'm going to do it again. And while I'm at it, I'm going to do it again and create the head bone. And so the next one is going to be the shoulder, which is actually going to come off of the bottom of the chest bone, or the top of the spine bone. And before I go any further, I'm going to position the head bone and the neck bone. Well, the neck bone, this is actually the chest bone. And I'm keeping it basic for this model. And since I'm only going to let Blender worry about the weight painting, I'm just going to try to, and in general, just try to keep the bones right in the middle of all the meshes, depending on what you're trying to animate. So this bone is actually going up to the shoulder. And so now if you look at the Unity reference image provided, we need an upper arm, a lower arm, and a hand bone. And so just get this thing positioned really quickly. It's not perfect, but it will do for this model. Okay, and then we also need the leg, and that's actually not going to come off the bottom of the hips. That's going to come off of the top of it, or the bottom of the spine bone. So again, we're going to extrude, and this is going to be the upper leg bone. So I'm going to select that and also go over here into the Blender hierarchy and just make sure that I have that bone completely selected, and make sure and select not connected, so I can drag it probably about right here. And this is the upper leg, so it needs to be a little bit smaller to have room for a lower leg bone and a foot bone. And again, I'm just using E for extrude here. And you can afterwards press Z, for example, to lock that movement to that axis. Okay, so that looks like it'll do the trick. The next thing that we need to do is name everything, and again, to make that simple, just look at the Unity reference image. So the root bone is always going to be the hips, and then going up we have the spine, and after that is the chest, and at the top there is the head, and then here we have shoulder dot L for left. So, and this naming convention is very important. So name yours exactly the same with the same names from Unity's reference image, Mecanim. So the next one is upper arm dot L, and then there's lower arm dot L and hand dot L, and there's also an upper leg dot L and a lower leg dot L and a foot dot L. So now I'm going to select with shift all of the parts of the model that can be duplicated over. I'm going to press shift E to duplicate, and then S to scale, and I'm going to scale and press X for the X axis and -1. So I want to scale it in the X axis, -1, and then just drag it into place. Now for the naming, since all of these bones are selected, we can just go to armature and flip names, and that's going to put a .R at the end of all of them. So now if we select all the bones, we should do an armature bone roll, recalculate roll to the Y-axis, and that just fixes the rotation on all the bones are exactly the same. And if we go into pose mode, we now need to say parent armature deform with automatic weights. And now if we select the mesh and we go into weight paint mode, okay, let's see what's going on here. I have all the bones selected. I'm going to go into pose mode. Make sure the entire armature is selected. And I don't believe I had the mesh selected. So let me do this again. I'm going to select the mesh first of all, and then the armature, and then go to pose mode. And set the parent with automatic weights. Whoops. Pose, parent, automatic weights. And now if I go to the mesh, I should be able to see that all the bones here have a weight assigned to them, to the vertices. And it's probably a good idea to look at the head, and it looks okay. Alright, so moving on. Unity's going to want a T-pose. So we need to select the armature again and go back into pose mode. And by using these three modifiers here, get the character into T-pose mode, or T-pose. I'm not sure T-pose is a mode. Good enough, and then I'm going to select these two. And now all three of them. Just get that arm up to where it looks like it's in T-pose. And the second one, whoops. Hello. Oh, sorry. T-pose, that's what we're doing. Okay. Just a tad more. Good, looks good. Okay, so at this point I should probably save it as a Blender file. Mouse.blend. And we're ready to move it into Unity, so let's export it to an FBX. Mouse.fbx. Alright, so let's open up Unity. I'm going to do everything from scratch here, so new project. And it's going to be called Tutorial 01. First Unity 5 tutorial. Okay, so instead of worrying about folder structure and all of that, let's just get this thing into action. Here's my tutorial folder. My final model was called mouse. And the first thing we need to do is click on this model and specify the rig. And so it needs to be a humanoid. And the avatar jet definition can be created from this model. And let's click to configure that. Let's apply the settings for the mouse. And it looks like, since we use the Unity reference image and we put it in a T-pose, Unity is automatically assigned all the bones and everything is great. We can go to the muscles tab here and we could specify constraints and limits so that the object doesn't collide with itself. So I am done here because everything is finished, and the next thing is just to get an animation. And this is not a tutorial about making animations, so what I'm going to do is just import a animation I have. And the Unity package is probably going to come with a bunch of stuff, and you can kind of just pick and choose what you want. I'm just going to grab these idle animations. Okay, now that the animations are imported, we're ready to go. All I'm going to do is create a plane so that there is a ground, and the one thing we probably should do is create an animation controller for the mouse. I'm going to call it mouse AC for animation controller. And let's also get his texture that we exported from Sculptris. Whoa, we got a monster. We could mess around with the scale. We could rescale it in Unity. You should generally make the scale correct though in your 3D modeling program. Or a program like Ultimate Unwrap 3D could get the job done quickly as well. Okay, so let's just drag the texture onto the mouse. There we go. He's looking good, but he's a little bit shiny, so I'm going to expand the texture and just bring the smoothness down to a quarter. And cool, he's looking pretty good, but he's just standing in T-pose. So he does have an animator attached. Let's look at his animator here. He doesn't have an animator attached. There we go. And I'm just going to do a quick search for a walking animation, and here we go. There's a walk, and I'm going to play the game. And the camera's at a really bad angle. And it looks like my character needs to get rotated 180 degrees. But that's alright. I could get that. I could do that very quickly, and the 3D modeling program, or Ultimate Unwrap. I'm just gonna do a line with view and hit play, and there we go. So we have the Sculptris. Sculptris model, poly reduced, rigged for Unity Mecanim, animated. And here we just got a couple. Walk with coffee. They're all about the same. Let's get something exciting. Here we go. Die and stay down. And our mouse is dead. Alright, you guys. That's it. Write down any questions in the comments. Thanks for watching.